Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today we are comparing two cameras especially for long exposure and low light photos. This has been my workhorse since 2013, the Canon 6D. So 7 years has passed since I bought this camera, and it still is a beast in low light conditions because it has a lower count megapixels and it is a full frame, which by the price at the time, this is a great camera. 7 years I wanted to upgrade it, and honestly the 6D Mark II, it wasn't really a great upgrade. I wanted to be an exceptional upgrade, so I didn't do it. Then it came the R and the RP, and I was a little bit disappointed with the ISO performance. Not a really big improvement enough to update from the 6D. Now, finally, we're gonna compare it, the real replacement of the 6D, the R6. It has 20 megapixels, full frame. Yeah, 7 years of difference. Will it be a good upgrade, or I just should stick by the 6D? So I don't know if you can see me, but it is extremely dark because I want to test out the ISO noise. So we started with 800, let's jump to 1600, go to 3200, and just keep climbing until we don't have much ISO range. Yeah, unfortunately we don't have a clear sky. If you are wondering, long exposure noise reduction is active, so that won't be an element to check out on the computer. I just want to know the ISO noise, okay? Unfortunately, I'm not using the exact same lens on both cameras because Canon, for some reason, make sure that the adapter to the AF lenses to RL lenses is out of stock everywhere. So yeah, it's kind of on an ES, but still I am using 24mm on both of them and f4. Not the ideal to photograph the night sky, but remember, this is an ISO test, so ignore the sharpness difference because that will be most influentially made by the lens. Okay, to change the ISO, you can see that we have the 3 wheels to change everything on the exposure, so the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. That is pretty damn neat. So to change the ISO, you just rotate this knob here on the back. That's really nice, because the old one, I had to press the light here so I can see press the ISO button. That is a little bit different from the other, so it gets easier, and there you go. Another thing that I really like in Canons is that the cameras has a small, very discreet red light on them, so we can actually make sure that the camera is accessing the memory of the card or something like that. Really handy. Well, there we go. So the ISO test, and honestly, I expect big things for 7 years of difference. Let's go to the computer. So everyone, no, I gonna go to sleep. You go to the computer with me later in the day. So everyone, now that we took our pictures, let's check them out on the computer. Before we start, I just gonna show you the exposure from the photos. So there is none. There is no editing on the photos itself, but I reduced the noise reduction from luminance and color all the way to 0, so we have the noise output from the cameras. If you want to download the images and test for yourself, you can go directly to my website, and let's start with 800 ISO. Let's activate the comparison view, and let's check out here on the stars. Again, the color fringing over here, that is the lens fault. Just a quick reminder, this is at f4 and 800 ISO, 24mm. You can see that the R6 has some noise, but the noise, it's like film grain. It's acceptable. I hope that YouTube compression doesn't mess this up. This is still pretty damn visible.
the noise from the 6D, there is some color noise, just a touch, almost invisible. You really have to look to find it. The 6D, it's not that far behind. Let's jump from 800 ISO directly to 3200 ISO. And this ISO, it's very important for me because it's the one that I use to photograph the Milky Way. So let's activate the comparison view and let's zoom in. And immediately we can see that there is a little bit of noise, expected noise, but you can see that the Canon 6D, it's a little bit worse. It's still very, very good. So remember, this is 3200 ISO. It's a full frame and 20 megapixels, both of them. You can see now 7 years of difference on these. So there is some red. Let me just zoom in a little bit more here so you guys can see what I'm on about. You can see that there is some green dots and red dots that on the R6 it's almost invisible. That's the 7 years of difference of evolution. So let's jump to 12,800 ISO. Now in this case we're still at 30 seconds of exposure, but very soon I have to reduce the shutter speed because it's getting close to overexposed. And let's see here in the dark areas here on the mountain, you can see that the red and green dots that I am talking about, the color noise. The noise itself, it's not far off. Just for fun, let's go directly to the extreme. So 102,400 ISO, and this should be AHAM, shouldn't be a usable image. And from far behind you can see that yeah, it's really bad, but if you zoom in it gets worse. Still, the R6 are really far ahead. What I want to do now is try to remove the noise, okay? But let's start just for fun and for testing out. Let's try to reduce the noise from 3200 ISO. Let's select the R6. Okay, let's reduce the noise really slow. If I press Alt on the keyboard and remove the noise, add some noise reduction, you can see that the image becomes black and white. So it's easier to judge how much noise reduction I need. And there you go. So 24 from the luminance noise reduction and 9 from the color. And let's start. There we go. The luminance noise reduction I added on the R6. 41 of reduction and 19 from the color noise reduction. Practically the double from the R6. Very impressive. Theoretically, we can say that it removed half of the noise in 7 years. Just for fun, let's try to remove the noise from 102,400 ISO. These images are not usable, but let's see how easy are they to remove the noise. And there you go. That's let's compare these two images. Immediately we can see that the 6D, it's completely like an aquarelle painting. Still, the R6, it's not really usable, but it's a pretty damn good improvement. Just for the sake of it, what I'm gonna do is sync the settings from the R6 to the 6D. Let's check all, and let's see how much difference it makes. So that means that both of them are with noise reduction of 71 and color reduction at 11. Well, folks, there you go. So, nope, the R6 has a really big advantage here. There you go. So, yeah. The test I'm gonna do now is a long exposure noise reduction test, okay? So now I'm gonna take a photo with the noise reduction on and then with the noise reduction off. This option on the menu on Canon, it's pretty damn basic. It's to remove the noise caused by more than 1 second long exposure. And
the main benefits of using this on is to remove some noise caused for long exposure, of course. If you take a long exposure of 30 seconds, the camera needs 30 seconds after taking the picture, processing the image to remove that long exposure noise. And that is a bit annoying, especially if you want to make, for example, time lapses. What you're gonna do is test what is the difference between both of them, okay, with the noise reduction exposure on and then with the noise reduction exposure off. So my exposure now, it's at f8 100 ISO with 6 seconds of shutter speed. I achieving 6 seconds because of this filter that, if you want to see the review, will be up there. I already made the photos with the Canon 6D. Let's try now the DR. So I'm gonna use the exact same settings. 6 seconds of exposure, 100 ISO, and f8. Okay, let's turn on the noise reduction and let's take the picture. As you can see, it flashes busy saying that it's processing to reduce the noise. So, and there we go. Let's check these photos on the computer. Let's start with the 6D, okay? And there we go. And let's activate the comparison view. Let's zoom in. And honestly, I don't see much of a difference. Now, I actually can see that there is a red dot over there, but as you can see here, the image is in there, and there is none or almost none visible on the one that has the long exposure noise reduction. So this is not a really good test, okay? So let's do this again. What I actually did, I put a lens cap on each of the cameras and took 2 pictures of 100 ISO, so the ISO noise won't interfere as much with the noise, and take 1 picture of 10 seconds with the noise reduction, long exposure noise reduction filter on, and the other one off, okay? And we have them here. Now, you guys are wondering why I did shut down my main light, mainly because it's extremely difficult to see the noise with the light hitting your eyes. So now, another thing that I made is that all the pictures has a little bit of one stop of light added, so we can see a little bit better the noise without adding too much noise by over forcing the exposure. If you play way too much with this tool, you can see that it adds noise where there is no noise. So let's put it at 1. Of course, again, noise reduction 0, color noise reduction at 0 as well. Let's compare this to, so this is the R6, and let's zoom in. As I said, it's extremely difficult to find some noise. Actually, I don't see none. I see nothing. So you can see this red and green dots that is way more populated here on the right, because this one has no long exposure noise reduction filter on the camera, and you can see that these color dots start to show up, but I have to pump up the exposure by 4 stops, and it's quite impressive. So I would feel extremely comfortable shut down that option on the camera to make something like time lapses. Let's check out the 6D. And again, there is 1 point of overexposure. Same way, it's extremely difficult to find something. We can see here. As you can see, there is a dot here, a red dot here, a green dot here, and a red dot here. So again, there is some artifacts showing up, but nothing major. Let's turn on the light so you guys can see me, my beautiful face. Another test that I want to do, it's crank up the exposure and see how much noise we'll add on this blacked out images. Let's go to develop mode and just crank the exposure all the way to 5. Of course, if I zoom in, you can see that this adds quite a bit of noise, okay?
Let's zoom out. Again, the vibration and saturation is all the way to the top, and all the options of noise reduction, it's all the way back to the 0, so there is no assistance by reducing some noise here on Lightroom. And what I'm gonna do is select this image and then the 6D image that has the applied the long exposure noise reduction option on the camera, and sync settings. Let's select all, so everything exactly the same, and let's try to compare these two images. On the left, as you may deduce by now, is the R6, and on the right is the Canon 6D. And Jesus Christ, how much difference we have here. If you are some person that try to recover a lot of details on the shadows, for some reason you take a lot of photos underexposed, and then you want to recover the details on the blacks, you really, if you are using a 6D, this probably will convince you to jump to our R6, because yeah, that there is a lot of difference. There you go. So I want to do one last test, is try to focus in low light. I am using that light on the camera. I'm gonna shut it down and I'm gonna try to focus on that lady over there, okay? So I'm gonna use this LED. I'm gonna start on 10%. I don't see the reason to start way higher. These cameras can focus in low light very well. Technically, this will be dual pixel versus this thing that it has inside, a cross thing, whatever. So let's do this test. There we are in complete darkness. Let's try. Well, it's focusing, no problem. Another thing is that this camera is actually cheating. If I turn around the camera, you guys can see this. There is this light that it's kind of a focus assist. Let's use the focus assist for the moment. You know what? With this focus assist, I'm gonna go shut down this bad boy. Yeah, and it can focus with the focus assist. So technically it's cheating. If you notice up there in the books, when I try to focus, it is in the shadow of the lens hood. So what I'm gonna do is try to focus on the books instead of the doll. So yes, it's focusing. 4, 3, again, it's focusing, no problem. 2, it's focusing. It did take a little bit of more time, but it did focus. Let's put it at 1. I need to change the focus, so let's press like this. Okay, it's not focusing. It gives me a red square. That means that it's not focusing. Of course, the 6D, it is a kind of analog focusing way, and I'm gonna put it in live view so you guys can see something. Let's try to focus on the lady. So I am using the center point because it analyzes the light that it comes vertically and horizontally. The other ones are not crossed. This one is. That's why I am using the center focus point. Of course, one of the main advantages of dual pixel is that you can focus anywhere on the screen and it just works. Let's do this again. 5. Focusing, no problem. 2. Focus, no problem. 1. Now, if this beats the dual pixel, goddamn. No, it's not focusing. So now we have a problem. I'm gonna put that light in power of 2, okay? And I'm gonna move it further back to see which is the limit. It's focusing here, as expected. Let's go send this light a little bit further back. So around 2 meters further back. And it's not focusing. Let's bring it closer, like around 1 meter, not focusing. Back to the starting position. And it did focus. That is really the limit. Let's try the R6. This is a fight, guys. This is a real fight. I'm gonna put my hand in front of the light that it shoots there, point at the lady, and it's focusing. Let's move the light around 1 meter back. Try to refocus. And it's not refocusing. Okay, let's call it. Dual pixel focusing is about the same exact thing as this old system, because this old system is excellent to focus in low light, and Canon with its dual pixel magic is doing what this can do. Now, probably the big advantage of these cameras is that it's using a mirror, and this system it's way more beneficial for the batteries than that because that it's always turning on the sensor and the screen or the visor or whatever. But yeah, that was quite impressive. So what you guys think about the R6 and the 6D? Leave it down below, suggestions and questions that you might have. And yeah, drop a like if you learned something, comment down below if you have any questions, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. I am Miguel. Until next time, see ya.